Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jessica, may I have a roll call of trustees, please?
Trustee Bush.
Here.
Trustee Duty. Here. Trustee Kapanos. Here. Trustee Law.
Here.
President Chef.
Here.
Trustee Spencer.
Here.
Trustee Young.
Not here. Absolutely. Yes.
6 present, 1 absent, 0 excused.
I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Before you vote, I just want to point out 2 items on the agenda that were adjusted today based on our closure. The appointment of Dwayne Perini is to be determined, and the acceptance of the donations for the STEAM celebration is also to be determined. Make sense?
Okay. Any questions? Did you have a motion and a second yet?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Brings us to our first public forum. This is the time of the board meeting agenda when district residents may address the Board of Education with their concerns. Each resident has up to 3 minutes to address the board. A total of 50 minutes will be allowed for each public forum. Do we have anyone on Google Hangouts at this time that would like to address the Board of Education?
You have to turn your microphones back on.
No, they would, yeah.
Okay. You have to turn your microphones back on and unmute if you want to join. Ask a question. Okay. Thank you. You may also submit your questions to Jessica Neischel, J-Neischel, J-N-E-I-S-C-H-E-L at depewschools.org. Jessica Neischel is a district clerk at this time. Next is our superintendent's report, Dr. Raby.
Can you throw that on for me, Sue?
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. And I have the next set of slides for our budget development process. And I'm going to skip right to those so that we can expedite our presentation. You'll notice on the adjustment on the revenue side, we have added our reserves that we will utilize during this budget for 2021. We're looking to use little over $1.2 million, or 35% more than we used the previous year. So that'll give us a total increase of revenue at almost $2.2 million, or increase of 3%. Tax levy from last meeting will be set at 1.94% based on the formula that we looked at last month. And then our reserve side, as I showed you on the revenue, you can see on the right-hand side, we'll be using just a little under $700,000 from our employee benefit accrued liability reserve, which will help support our retirements. About $250,000 from our ERS reserve, $131,000 from our TRS reserve, which is the new reserve we established last year. And that will help offset our gap, which I'll show you in a second. $100,000 from our workman's comp reserve, $46,000 from our capital reserve for vehicles and equipment, for a total of a little over $1.2 million, as I mentioned on that other slide. And then you'll see our use of reserves over a period of time since 2014. And that will leave us with a little over $7.5 million in our reserves. Looking at our budget request, we added 2 more to this list since last time. You'll notice number 5 that we have on there. That's our Wildcat Summer Camp. That was, for the last 2 years, it has been through our PEP grant. So the PEP grant has ended, so that is shifting into our own budget. So that's a little over $42,000. And then you'll notice number 10. As I shared with the board a couple weeks ago, we started using Thought Exchange, getting input from our faculty and staff along with our community on priorities in our budget. And one of the things that we heard a lot about, specifically from our faculty and staff at CUGA, is increased supervision in the cafeteria with the amount of students that we have in the cafeteria. And we worked with the CSEA to offer this opportunity. So we increased our cafeteria monitors by 1, and that would be $8,500. So initially we had a shortfall of about $948,000 between our draft budget and our draft revenues. As always, we look to protect our programming for students, class size, maximize our resources and efficiencies, evaluate our needs and wants, and review budgeting over a 3-year period of time before we make any specific reductions. But what we were able to do is through various salary and benefit reductions in the retirement breakage, save about $423,000. Looked at our BOCES programming. We were able to make reductions there at $40,000. Our special ed out of district placements, we decreased those placements for next year, so we saved $84,000. Reviewed our technology budget items that were originally requested. We're going to look at replacing our Chromebooks that are aged out through the remaining Smart Schools funding, and then purchase a more efficient firewall protection system. So we'll be able to save $270,000 there for a total of $817,000. Couple that with that TRS use that I mentioned in the reserves. And therefore we'll be able to close that gap. And right now we have a balanced budget. Now, the governor and the Assembly and the Senate are working together. They're hoping to have a plan to present to the legislature by the end of this week and hopefully have a budget adoption much earlier than the April 1st deadline. If we get additional state aid, we'll be able to refund some of our reserves as a result. So we won't have to use as much in the reserves as we currently are planning. Does that make sense, everybody?
What's the prognosis for that additional money?
Well, one huge benefit that we're hearing is that whole plan of combining all the expense-driven aids into the foundation aid is going to be coming off the table.
Oh.
So that's a huge thing. And then always we see the Senate and the Assembly put additional funds into education, and I think that that will continue to happen like it has in the past. So I couldn't put a number on.
It's a positive.
It's been a positive. It's been a positive vibe, and I do think that they're trying to get a deal done quicker rather than later down the road. And from what I'm hearing, it's the governor and leadership representation from each of the houses. So I think they're trying to get it done as quick as possible. Our vehicle reserve, as the board remembers from last meeting, we're looking to purchase 3 66-passenger buses with Wi-Fi, 1 48-passenger bus with Wi-Fi, and surplus 4 of those vehicles. I gave the board some information a couple weeks ago from a question that Trustee Young had about those surplus vehicles. Hopefully you found that information useful. And then our capital outlay, we're looking to do our capital outlay to upgrade our pool interior finishes, accessory and equipment, specifically those starter blocks. So there's an item on the agenda tonight under new business to process the seeker request for the environmental piece of that project. And then once hopefully the budget gets approved by the voters, we'll be able to put out our bids for that project. And we're looking actually to get this capital outlay completed this summer. And then our next steps, our next meeting in April, we're required to do the legal notices, publicize those legal notices. You'll be presented with the final budget for adoption. Tax levy limit and proposition language for the May vote will also be adopted by the board and published. Any questions?
I do, Joe.
Yep.
Just give me 1 second here.
That's okay. Take your time.
The part-time clerk typist for the elementary counseling center.
Yes.
Why do we need this? We've never had this as long as I've been around.
Yep. As I mentioned in the rationale and the notes, with the amount of increasing needs in the social emotional learning of our students, we're trying to pull some of that secretarial or clerk work away from the counselors so that they can spend more time in addressing those needs one-on-one with the students.
Thank you.
Yep.
I got a question about whether we're gonna have the vote.
So we have been receiving updates on a continual basis from Albany. There has been no direction on altering that whatsoever. Specifically, even petitions came up today in a conference call with the school attorneys across New York State and SED. And they said that there has been no movement whatsoever to relieve the timeline on that, giving people extended time, or even suspending the need to get petitions in. So we're not hearing anything like that at all. In fact,
Maybe a little early for that.
yeah, I think when we get closer to the end of April and seeing if we're still in the same or worse situation, we might start seeing some information on that. And and it could be a whole gamut of mitigation to get past that legal burden to do the adoption of the budgets. Other states, it's the boards of education that adopt the budget. You think about New York State, we're pretty much the only state where a school budget gets voted on twice. And what I mean by that is you're all elected to these posts, to these positions. You adopt the budget. There's number one. Number two, then we put that budget out to the voters a second time to get it approved after they've already put their faith in you to support the budget. So Ohio does it that way. Boards adopt the budget. It gets enacted. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're on new ground here. So
Yeah, I can see, obviously we can see kind of what happened primary was supposed to be.
Right.
It could get tacky, and I also worry if we have it, things are still going horribly, that we might didn't have a good turnout last year. A really low turnout would worry.
Ms. Neuschel is hoping that we do full absentee ballot.
That's what I think we should do.
I think so too.
How about drive-through?
There you go. There you go.
Perfect.
That's gonna balance. Jeff, with the Wellcat summer camp thing.
Yep.
Is there any way we could partner with the Depew? Is there a recreation department in Depew, or is it just like Chester?
There's a recreation department in Depew.
Yeah. Is there a way we might be able to partner with them with the Wildcat camp? It's held usually at like.
We're holding it on our own site though. We're going to
Oh,
do everything's going to be on campus.
Okay.
We're going
I thought
to.
part of it was at Fireman's at one time.
Well, no. The last 2 years it's been all at Fireman's. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add an academic component to it.
Okay.
Of literacy. So all of our students that participate in that camp will also we'll be teaching them at the same time. So they're going to have fun and not even know it. We have some really exciting things planned. The other partner that we have on camp, on campus, it'll be a different program. Will be the Y. Y has a summer camp. They're usually at William Street School, but they're undergoing a significant amount of capital project work this summer. So they asked, because we have a lot of our kids that go to that camp as well. So they asked if they could use our facility. So we're going to be sharing between Cuga and middle school and the high school. There are going to be a lot of little kids running around this year. We're really excited about that.
So that's anybody, open anybody, or is that anybody?
Wildcat Prep, the Wildcat summer camp is there's applications online right now. That's, I mean, there's a limit, but we're taking applications right now. That's open to anybody in the district because it's free of charge.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Raby. Motion of the Board of Education to find the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? I do have a question because it was just went through real quick for me. Dwayne Perini, what was the clarification regarding that?
The start date is to be determined
Oh, the start date's to be determined.
because we're on closure right now.
Okay.
We didn't want to make that tomorrow because we're not in session. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Bring us to new business. Number one, I have a motion the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the following donations for our STEAM celebration to be determined as per attached.
Second.
Any questions? Same thing with that. Not sure what's going to happen.
Right. It might happen next year.
Gotcha. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. Number two, may I have a motion of the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the $500 donation to Depew Middle School from Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Law to be used to help fund the Freedom in America contest, formerly called Sertoma.
So moved.
Second.
One piece of clarification, if we end up having to cancel it, we'll just keep the donation for next year. then.
Yep, then you can skip next year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Law. Trustee Law. May I have a motion of the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the request from the Dance Workshop Incorporated to approve their not-for-profit status and waive all fees to use the designated facilities.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
That's an outside not-for-profit agency.
Right. The Dance Center, Dance Studio,
They're
using the auditorium.
they're for profit, but the request is to be considered a not-for-profit so that we won't charge them. You understand? What we've done in the past with that group, they're a for-profit group, but they're asking to be considered a not-for-profit and not be charged because they're mostly all of our kids. But if the board would rather not consider them not-for-profit, we would then charge them the use of the auditorium.
Well, I was just asking because like the student my daughter goes to, we paid Maryville some money to use their
Yep.
facilities. And I just saw their not-for-profit.
What did we do last year?
I believe the same thing.
Yeah, we've done this one a couple of years in a row. and it was-
That's it. And we've done that previously with other
I know we have done.
dance centers, I think, years before.
You
They're
do that.
located in our district.
They're right next,
Yep.
they're right behind McDonald's. In our district.
Mostly our kids. You good with that?
Yeah, just,
Okay,
I just.
Yep.
No, I just want to verify. Are we all good with that? That's good. Okay. Do we have a motion in a second?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Number four, may I have a motion of the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the request to reschedule the trip to Japan for April 9th through April 16th, 2020, from November 7th, 2020 through November 13th, 2020. It was originally approved by the Board of Education on April 16th, 2019 as per attached.
Second.
That's a little hard to say right
Any
now,
questions?
but, I mean,
We'll be back if you have to
right,
move it
we
again.
just, postpone it again.
They just need that for planning purposes.
All in favor?
I,
Motion carried.
Seniors, Jeff, that are this year, are they still planning on going on that trip?
If they can, they will. And if not, they'll get reimbursed.
Number five, may I have a motion of the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve a resolution dated March 17th, 2020 of the Board of Education of the Depew Union Free School District, Erie County, New York, the district, declaring the district's proposed capital outlay project involving modest upgrades and improvements at the district's high school swimming pool to be a type 2 action under SECRA and authorizing and directing the inclusion of funding for such project in the district's proposed 2020-2021 budget.
So move.
Get a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to our second public forum. This is the time of the board meeting agenda when district residents may address the Board of Education with their concerns. Each resident is up to 3 minutes to address the board. A total of 50 minutes will be allowed for each public forum. Again, do we have anyone on Google Hangouts at this time that would like to address the Board of Education? If so, please unmute yourself and speak away.
I do have one question from an email. It's from Jonathan Markowski. My name is Jonathan Markowski, and I was wondering if the van trip for May is still canceled.
Yes. It is.
Unfortunately, Jonathan, sorry about that. Thank you for asking your question. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Brings us to comments and remarks by board members.
Yeah, I've been looking a lot at, obviously, the economic part of all of this, and the doesn't take a wizard to look at the TVs for us in 3 or 4 years, well, 2 to 3 years, are going to be maybe worse than the last recession, unless the market really comes back. So, I guess part of what I'm wondering, and it's probably not fair to ask exactly this way, is kind of we got to be cognizant that we're looking at possibly worse circumstances than we had to work through 5 years ago now.
Yep. 10.
Is it that long?
Yeah.
It was 10 years. But you know, remember, and for the new board members, I mean, we were facing gigantic budget shortfalls, especially in regards to the
Great Recession.
the Great Recession of the stock market funds. Obviously, we've talked about how lucky we've been that everything's been good lately, but it's not as bad as it could possibly be now. We're going to come right into that again. So,
Yeah.
Thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, so we've been keeping really close tabs on that. As you know, the biggest impact that the stock market has on school district funding really is at TRS and ERS. But now we have 2 reserves set up for it to protect us against that. We will continue to put fund balance in both of those reserves to help offset that. ERS, ERS, because it's only a real small portion of our employees. The TRS one, that's a huge help. So about 18 months from now, so not next year's budget when we do that, but the following year's budget is when we'll really feel the squeeze on that side. And hopefully, I'm confident that we will have enough reserve built up to balance that off and not hit the overall budget. In addition, we're hearing more and more, just from the president today about some of the stimulus packages that are being put through. I think what happened in the last recession, the Great Recession, was the slow uptick in economic stimulus packages. And I think, we're hitting it immediately, and hopefully that will smooth out the brunt of it. In the market, today went back up, was 1,100, 1,200 points. Yesterday we lost 3,000, and we're back up 1,200 already today. So I think we'll continue to monitor it and be cognizant of it as we move forward.
The other concern I have, obviously, is because the receipts for New York State are going to be
Correct.
just
So
a massive crater.
absolutely. There's still yesterday the information I was looking at. There's even with the negotiations that are going on between the governor and the Assembly and the Senate, they're still banking on that about $700 million surplus that they're banking on. So
Hopefully that'll get us
Yep.
through. Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And a little bit, since I still have the hot mic, today we very, very proud to say the way the faculty and staff came together and pull off our lunch program within a day, basically. Barb Albee and I worked on it pretty much all day Saturday. Saturday night, we were able to submit our waiver to New York State to serve lunches in an alternative manner. Sunday, we finalized some of the details with regard to pickup. And then Monday, we were able to put together our messaging for our community and get that out. And so today was our very first day. We served over 303 lunches and 303 breakfasts. We had 184 of those. We had 184 students receive meals at our remote sites, the 4 remote sites. 108 were picked up at Cayuga Heights, and 13 were delivered. And then we also, at the same time, in the front of the building, we were in the process of distributing the Chromebooks to our third, fourth, and fifth graders. And we were able to get out almost 50% of those devices. And we're scheduled to be open for those pickups the rest of this week as well. So we're confident that we're going to get probably almost 95% in the hands of the kids. Now, again, if kids already have devices at home, we won't see them, right? But they're able to access that continual learning. And our whole focus is to prevent the regression. That's our bottom standard, is to hopefully prevent regression. There are some teachers that are taking it above and beyond and really challenging kids. And it's really nice to see, to provide that continuity of instruction. So again, I'm just so proud of this entire faculty and staff and the amount of support that we're getting from all corners of the Depew community. So really happy. And I'll keep you updated on the numbers as we continue to move through.
Was there any kind of technology? I know some districts did a technology survey to see what students had access.
Well, all our students have all our students have devices.
I mean, like, are able to access internet.
Oh yeah, yep. We actually did surveys back when we went 1-to-1. And some of our families needed support, and we provided them with Kajits, which is basically a wireless device. It's a free service, so we did that. Coupled with, we sent out on Friday, I'm sure you saw the news story, Spectrum is offering free wireless access for anybody who contacts them. So we sent out that resource. And then we also have the resource. Mr. D'Amato put together a list of all the free wireless access points within the school community. Some of them aren't accessible right now because they're closed, but in any event, that's out there. And then as folks are picking up their Chromebooks, we're making sure that they have wireless access. If they say we don't, we're getting them the support that they need. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier on, if we find a number of houses in different areas within the district, we'll go and park a bus out in front of the houses, because we have the wireless access on the buses. So, and the mechanics worked last week to direct wire all of the device, because right now they run off the battery, so the bus has got to be running, or they got to be running. So they did direct wire, so we can go and park the bus if we need to. So we're pretty well covered. And again, we keep telling folks, if you can't, or if you know somebody that can't, let us know right away. The other thing that we did, to go back to the lunches, so we did Global Connect yesterday, Blackboard Connect yesterday, and it's on our website. And then we just direct mailed that document that I sent to all of you yesterday. We direct mailed that to every household today. We got those all out today. So we're anticipating this number to almost triple by the end of the week.
Well, I know of some children that came for breakfast this morning, and they were quite impressed with what they got.
Good.
And they were quite happy with the way everything went. So I personally really appreciate what we're doing for our children, because there are children that need that.
Yep.
And it's very nice that we stood up and doing it for them.
I tried trading out Doritos with a couple kids today. They wouldn't do it.
Dr. Reedy, there's a comment.
Want to read that?
Sure, we have a comment from somebody that's from Beth Schilling. She says, kudos to the entire district for how they're handling the situation. Because of your proactive preparation, our kids have been able to continue with education since day one of closures. The Chromebook and meal pickups are both extremely organized. Teachers have been in regular communication as well. Great job and thank you. Appreciate you recognizing that and typing that, and posting that. Beth, really appreciate that. Dr. Amy and the staff have done a great job. And it's just awesome.
So Jeff, may I ask, are we going to go maybe on 2-week increments? Are we just gonna, because there's like so much that I keep hearing and there's a lot of truth and there isn't, but is it definitely, I mean, in 2 weeks?
So-
can we possibly look through this and maybe come back sooner?
Well,
Or
great, that's a great question, Mrs. Kapanos. We all agreed on Sunday night, we had a meeting at BOCES at about 4:00. All the superintendents in Erie County were there, or represented, and we all agreed, as a region, we would close through the spring break, which is April 20th. The one thing that we're up against right now is the governor just put out an executive order late last night that indicated that we would get a waiver for the 180-day requirement up through April 1st. However, that could be extended an additional 2 weeks. So we've been working with both NISCUS, our superintendent's organization, along with our school attorneys to interpret the executive order, because there are some things in that executive order we were not expecting. One of them being that schools are going to be required to provide childcare for healthcare workers. And we don't know what that looks like and what those parameters are. So we have been in consultation with SED for guidelines on what that looks like, along with our attorneys. Just before the board meeting, I was working on some emails with our school attorney. So we have that we're working through, along with the idea that if the governor doesn't extend that 2 weeks and says we have to come back April 1st, we may have to come back April 1st. But right now we're out through April 20th. And that just happened last night. So it's changing on a
it seems like by
daily
the hour, that's why I
basis.
shut the damn TV off, because I am like done, because I don't know what's real, what's not real. I heard that maybe we could in 2 weeks determine whether our children are coming back to school.
So the most current up-to-date stuff is the website, that's the best place to check.
Our website's the best way to stay up to date. Yep.
Also, the teachers are doing a great job. I do have a child that's already complaining, that's all she's been doing for the last 2 days is homework. So I kudos to the teachers and just for putting this all together. This was pretty quick.
Yep.
And you guys did a great job. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I got yelled at by my granddaughter this morning. He's like, this isn't fair. I said, like,
That's what we want to hear. We want to hear.
Anybody else? Okay, I want to thank the board for coming. Dr. Avey, Sue, Jessica, the people that attended or attending on Google Hangouts, thank you as well. I appreciate your support and your interest. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let's not forget that. Can't go anywhere to celebrate, but go home.
well, they all did that already. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly. That's why we're in the state we're in, maybe. And be safe. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and we'll see you soon.
Wash your hands.
And
everyone.
that's it. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second? Anybody second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.